In the dry plains of La Mancha, Spain, a land of dust and memory where nothing remarkable ever happens, lived a man who read too many books and believed them all. While the world around him marched forward into a new age of commerce and practicality, he looked backward, chasing a forgotten era of honor, courage, and glory. He consumed tales of knights errant, stories of brave warriors who rescued maidens, slayed dragons, defeated giants, and restored justice to a corrupt world. He read until his brain dried up. He read until he could no longer distinguish between the pages of fantasy and the dirt roads of reality. And then, at the age of 50, Alonso Quijano made a decision that would transform him into one of the most iconic figures in all literature. He would become a knight. This is not the story of a hero who conquered the world, but of a man who dared to see it differently. This is Don Quixote. Alonso Quijano is a minor nobleman living in a small village in La Mancha. He has a modest income, a small household, and absolutely nothing of significance in his life. So he fills the void with books, chivalric romances, specifically, tales of legendary knights whose adventures stretch the boundaries of possibility into the realm of the absurd. Giants, enchantments, castles under siege, damsels in distress, evil sorcerers, noble quests. Alonso reads these stories not as entertainment, but as history, as instruction, as a blueprint for how the world should work. His family grows concerned. His niece and housekeeper beg him to stop reading, to return to reality. But it's too late. The line between fiction and reality has dissolved completely. One morning, Alonso Quijano makes his proclamation. The world has fallen into corruption. Knights errant no longer roam the land righting wrongs. It is his duty, his destiny, to restore the age of chivalry. He renames himself Don Quixote de la Mancha. From his attic, he retrieves a suit of rusted armor that belonged to his great-grandfather, unworn for decades. The helmet is broken. He repairs it with cardboard. The breastplate is dented. He polishes it until it gleams in his imagination, if not in reality. He finds a skeletal old horse in a nearby field, a creature so ancient and frail it can barely walk. He names it Rocinante and declares it the finest steed in all of Spain. Every knight needs a lady to serve, a noble cause to dedicate his victories to. Don Quixote recalls a peasant woman from a nearby village, Aldonza Lorenzo, a farm girl who has no idea he exists. In his mind, she transforms into Dulcinea del Toboso, the most beautiful and virtuous lady in the world. He will fight for her honor. He will dedicate every victory to her name. Armed with delusion and determination, Don Quixote mounts Rocinante and rides forth into the world, alone and utterly convinced of his destiny. The age of chivalry has returned, or so he believes. Don Quixote's first encounters with the real world are disasters wrapped in nobility. He arrives at a shabby roadside inn, dirty, crowded, filled with travelers and working women. To Don Quixote, it is a majestic castle. The weary innkeeper becomes a great lord in his eyes. The prostitutes become noble ladies. The stables become grand halls. Don Quixote demands to be knighted. The innkeeper, recognizing madness when he sees it, decides the fastest way to rid himself of this lunatic is to play along. That night, in a mock ceremony, the innkeeper taps Don Quixote with a sword and mumbles nonsense that sounds vaguely ceremonial. Don Quixote takes it with absolute seriousness. He is now a true knight, blessed by a noble lord, ready to face the world's challenges. The next morning, he rides out and encounters his first great enemy, windmills. 30 or 40 of them stand in a field, their giant sails turning slowly in the wind. To Don Quixote, they are not windmills. They are giants, massive, monstrous creatures with flailing arms, threatening the land. He shouts challenges at them, declaring he will strike them down in the name of Dulcinea. At this point, Don Quixote has recruited a companion, Sancho Panza, a simple farmer promised wealth and an island to govern if he serves as squire. Sancho tries desperately to explain those are windmills, not giants. But Don Quixote will not be deterred. He lowers his lance, spurs Rocinante forward, and charges. The lance strikes one of the spinning blades. The impact lifts Don Quixote from his saddle and hurls him violently to the ground. Rocinante stumbles, the lance shattered. Sancho rushes to his master's side, reminding him they were windmills. Don Quixote, bruised and bleeding but entirely unshaken, struggles to his feet and explains patiently they were giants when he charged. But the enchanter Freston, his archenemy, transformed them into windmills at the last moment to deny him glory. Sancho stares at him. There is no reasoning with this man. And yet, Sancho stays. Why? Because Don Quixote has promised him an island. Because life as a poor farmer is unbearable. Because Perhaps a beautiful madness is better than a miserable reality. Together, they continue. Don Quixote mistakes a flock of sheep for an advancing army and charges into them, scattering terrified animals and enraging shepherds. He attacks wineskins hanging from a tree, believing them to be giants, and drenches himself in cheap wine. He frees a chain gang of prisoners, convinced they are wrongly imprisoned knights, only to be beaten and robbed by the criminals he liberates. Each defeat, each humiliation, each broken bone and lost tooth, none of it shakes his conviction. To Don Quixote, failure is never his fault. Enchanters are always conspiring against him. Reality is always wrong. And in his unwavering belief, there is something both tragic and magnificent. Stories of Don Quixote spread across Spain. Some laugh at the mad knight. Some pity him. Some are moved by his sincerity. And some, the worst kind, see an opportunity for entertainment. The Duke and Duchess, wealthy aristocrats bored with their comfortable lives, hear tales of Don Quixote and invite him to their estate. They do not do this out of kindness. They do it for spectacle, for amusement, for the pleasure of watching a madman perform. Don Quixote and Sancho are welcomed with elaborate ceremony. Servants pretend to recognize Don Quixote as a legendary knight. False prophecies are delivered by actors in costume. An enchanted wooden horse is presented for a heroic quest that exists only in the Duke's imagination. Don Quixote believes every word, every gesture, every staged illusion. The Duke and Duchess create elaborate pranks. They convince Sancho he must whip himself thousands of times to disenchant Dulcinea. They stage fake battles with actors dressed as demons. They make Don Quixote ride the wooden horse, while servants blow air in his face to simulate flight. It is cruel. It is humiliating. But Don Quixote remains sincere throughout, treating every staged event as real, every false prophecy as divine truth. Meanwhile, Sancho is given his promised reward. He is made governor of an island. In reality, it is a small, poor village, but Sancho is told it is an island kingdom, and he takes the role seriously. And here, something remarkable happens. Sancho Panza, the simple, illiterate farmer who has spent the entire journey mocking his master's madness, proves to be a wise and just governor. He settles disputes with common sense. He rules with fairness and compassion. He shows that wisdom does not require education, and nobility does not require noble blood. When the Duke and Duchess grow bored and end the charade, Sancho returns to Don Quixote, no longer mocking him quite so harshly. Perhaps the mad knight is not entirely wrong. Perhaps the world needs dreamers, even when those dreams are impossible. But the cruelty of the Duke and Duchess reveals a darker truth. Don Quixote is not a knight. He is a joke, and the world will never let him forget it. Eventually, Don Quixote's journey must end. A young man from his village, Sanson Carrasco, who has watched Don Quixote's madness with growing concern, decides to cure him through defeat. He disguises himself as the Knight of the White Moon and challenges Don Quixote to single combat. The terms are clear. If Don Quixote loses, he must return home and abandon knight-errantry for 1 full year. Don Quixote accepts without hesitation. How could he refuse? Knights do not turn down challenge. The two men charge at each other, lances lowered, horses thundering forward, and Don Quixote is defeated. He falls from Rocinante, his armor clattering against the ground. For the first time in his adventures, he cannot explain the loss as enchantment or trickery. He has been bested in fair combat according to the rules of chivalry he holds sacred. Bound by his oath, Don Quixote must return home. The journey back to La Mancha is quiet. No giants appear, no castles need defending, no adventures called. Only a tired old man and a faithful squire. Walking a dusty road toward an ending neither wants to acknowledge. Don Quixote returns to his village and falls gravely ill. For days he lies in bed, feverish and weak. His family gathers around. The priest and the barber, who burned many of his books years ago trying to cure his madness, sit at his bedside. Then something changes. Don Quixote wakes, and when he speaks, his voice is different, clearer, sadder, utterly sane. He renounces everything. He is not Don Quixote, he said. He is Alonso Quixote. He has been mad. He apologizes for the trouble he has caused. His niece weeps with relief. The priest gives thanks. Sanity has returned. But Sancho Panza is devastated. He begs his master not to abandon their adventures. They will ride out against. They will become shepherds. They will find Dulcinea. Alonso Quixano shakes his head sadly. There is no Dulcinea, he explains quietly. There never was. He has been a fool, chasing fantasies while reality waited patiently to reclaim. Sancho cries out in protest. You are not a fool. You were the bravest man I ever knew. But the dream has ended. Alonso Quijano dictates his will, forgives his enemies, and prepares for death. He dies peacefully, surrounded by those who loved him, or at least loved the man he tried to be. The priest writes an epitaph. Here lies the noble knight Don Quixote de la Mancha, who lived as a madman and died as a wise man. But Sancho Panza knows the truth. Don Quixote did not die wise. He died defeated. The world did not change for him. Giants remained windmills, castles remained in, and the age of chivalry remained dead and buried. But for a brief, impossible moment, one man believed it could be otherwise. And perhaps that belief, however mad, was the bravest thing of all. Don Quixote failed in every battle he fought. He was beaten, humiliated, mocked, and ultimately broken. He changed nothing. He saved no one. He conquered no evil. And yet, his story endures. Centuries later, because Don Quixote represents something humanity needs but rarely acknowledges, the courage to see the world not as it is, but as it should be. Reality without dreams is barren, a world of windmills and dust and inevitable decay. But dreams without reality are dangerous. They lead to broken bones and shattered illusions. The truth lies somewhere between. Don Quixote reminds us that idealism, even when impractical, is not worthless. That honor, even when mocked, is not meaningless. That fighting for a better world, even when you cannot win, is not futile. He was mad, absolutely, undeniable. But the world he imagined, a world of justice, courage, and nobility, is that truly madness? Or is the madness believing we should accept the world as it is and never dare to dream of something better? Don Quixote died defeated, but his dream lives on. And perhaps that is the greatest victory of all. In a world that values practicality over principle, profit over honor, and cynicism over hope, one man dared to believe that windmills could be giants if only we had the courage to see them that way. The age of chivalry died centuries before Don Quixote was born. But for one glorious, ridiculous, heartbreaking moment, he brought it back to life, not through strength or wisdom, but through sheer stubborn refusal to accept that dreams must die, simply because reality says so. And in the end, perhaps that is what true nobility looks like. Not the ability to conquer the world, but the courage to imagine it could be better, even when everyone tells you you're insane for trying.